Player props here on PrizePicks for Saturday, January 14th. This is for the Saturday NFL wildcard playoff slate just for the Saturday games. We got the two games, Seahawks versus Niners, Chargers versus Jaguars. Before I get started, there's a link in the description below to sign up for PrizePicks, or you can use promo code TUFF to sign up. PrizePicks will match 100% of your first deposit. There's also a Discord link in the description, as well as Patreon link where I do post all the plays here that I'm making on PrizePicks for each given sport that I do play. Again, I'm not a gambling expert, and this is not financial advice, simply just the plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully give you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions here. But let's get into it, you guys. Two plays from this two-game slate. We got the, division rivals here, Seahawks, Niners, and then the Jags and the Chargers. I believe that game is going to be played in Jacksonville. I don't think weather is going to have an impact on these games. I think maybe some slight rain in Santa Clara, and then it should be nice down in Jacksonville this Saturday. But let's get into it. Obviously, the spread, the Niners are going to be 10-point favorites at home, and then the Chargers are actually 2.5-point favorites on the road. Chargers Jags has quite a bit of higher over/under at 47.5. Niners at 42.5. But let's get into it. Two plays that I do like from these two games. So the first one is going to be running back Austin Eckler for the Chargers, and I like his over 5 receptions here against Jacksonville. So if you take a look at his last 5, which he's hit the under on this for his last 5, but he's already also talked about they clinched a playoff spot, I believe, here in Indy. And he talked about, they weren't going to really use him too much. They didn't want to get him to get injured too much as far as his workload those last couple of games of the season. Obviously, this is the playoffs. Obviously, the Chargers looking to get a playoff win in that division round. But I like Austin Eckler here a lot. So if we take a look, on the season, he's gone over 5 receptions, 9 times already this season. So we know Austin Eckler is capable of doing that 9 times already this season. But taking a quick look at some injury notes, we know Mike Williams got injured, right? He's questionable for this game. He wasn't spotted at the media access portion of Wednesday's practice. He was seen leaving last week's game on crutches. So Mike Williams being out, I definitely think helps the Austin Eckler prop. If we take a look at his game log this season without Mike Williams, right, we can see he's gone over this or pushed or better in every single game, 5, 11, 7, and 7. Obviously, Keenan Allen's going to be there, but there's going to be quite a bit of targets for him in this game, considering the Jaguars allow the most targets to the running back position. Take a look at this. Yeah, most targets to the running back position, Jacksonville Jaguars. 140 targets on the season to the running back position. Total receptions, they are second in the NFL at 107 targets to the running back position. 107 receptions to the running back position. But the most targets in the NFL, with Austin Eckler being the best, most elite, and most targeted running back out the backfield as far as catching the ball. We take a look at the odds on this. The line here on PrizePicks is at 5. Almost every sportsbook has this set at 4.5, but there's insane juice on the over on it. BetMGM has this at 155, minus 155. Caesars minus 148. Sugar House minus 155. Bet Rivers 155. Yeah, so just consensus. Consensus is 148, but you can see, this opened at minus 160. Last 10 games, this is hit the over on 6 of 10. We can see here running backs targeted. This isn't even the full season, but just like recent running backs targeted. DeAndre Swift caught 4 targets, 6 targets, 4 catches, right? And just overall as team running backs, Houston Texans running backs had 14 targets. Indianapolis Colts had 13. Chargers have placed Jacksonville earlier this season, right? And he had 13 targets. We can see this player stats here. Austin Eckler in that game had 8 receptions on 8 targets. Caught all 8 targets on 8 receptions. So really bodes well here for Austin Eckler at 5, in my opinion, with no Mike Williams. I love this spot here for him. I do think this possibly maybe has a chance to bump up. Honestly, not too sure, but love Austin Eckler here at 5 receptions. You could maybe pivot if you don't like receptions to receiving yards or even fantasy score, because he's going to be heavily involved in this offense. Without Mike Williams, love this play here, though. 5 receptions for Austin Eckler. And the second prop here that I'm looking at is going to be George Kittle, tight end, obviously, for the Niners. And I like his over 3.5 receptions. So both these plays here, receptions props. I like his 3.5 receptions here. If you take a look at his last 5, hit the over on this in every single game of his last 5. Faced Seattle back here on December 15th and had 4 receptions in that game. Obviously, playoffs come around and everything's just elevated, right? The best players are going to be targeted. The best players are going to be having the most snaps. There's not going to be, it's do or die. So, love this play here from a George Kittle for a few reasons. One, sportsbooks have this set at over 3.5. FanDuel has this -138. Caesars -135. Sugar House, consensus is -125, but FanDuel and Caesars both have this -135. FanDuel -138. But great matchup for George Kittle. So if you just take a look at a couple things, George Kittle this season with Brock Purdy as the quarterback, he's hit this in every single game, right? All 5 games with Brock Purdy, 6 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets. Like I said, just faced Seattle back here on December 15th and caught 4 catches on 5 targets for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. You could honestly pivot if you want to 10.5 fantasy score. I think this is a little bit low, in my opinion, at 10.5 fantasy score. Like, I'm probably going to be pairing this one as well at some point. But 3.5 receptions for Kittle has hit the over on this, like I said, every single time with Brock Purdy as his quarterback, and just an absolute elite matchup. So if you take a look here, this is the last 4 weeks of the season to tight ends. The Seahawks, 3rd most targets, fourth most total receptions, the most receiving yards, the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. But if we just look at the full season here against tight ends, right? The Seahawks, the most tight ends. Seahawks the most tight ends. Sorry about that. Seahawks the most tight ends to most fantasy points to tight ends. Sorry. We can see here the most receiving yards to tight ends. Receptions, they're down here, not as high. Obviously, that has to do with like game script and things like that, because teams were probably either up or it was somewhat of a closer game against Seattle. And then targets here, Seattle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th most targets to the tight end position. But I just love this play here at 11.7 target fantasy points per game to the tight end position. It's going to be a great matchup for Kittle. We know he has a great relationship with Brock Purdy. The odds on this one too, like I said, over 3.5 tight ends this season against the Seahawks. This isn't the full season. This is just like recent games that fit here. Kittle, Higbee, Ertz, Kelsey, and Conklin. I've all cashed this line. Playoff game here. I expect George Kittle. Let's take a look at George Kittle game log playoffs career. Now, obviously, year to year is different, but just to show you, this is his career playoff game where I guess it's kind of been somewhat of some duds here. But he's hit the over on this twice, 3, 4, and 4 receptions here. But I love to play here for George Kittle against the Seahawks. Again, like I said, you could pivot and take 10.5 fantasy score as well. But these are the 2 plays here. Austin Eckler, 5 receptions over or more, and George Kittle, 3.5 receptions more over. Let me know in the comments below how you guys feel about these 2 plays. Obviously, there's a ton of plays on the board already in NFL playoffs, so it's going to be super fun to watch these games. Drop a like on this video, guys. Hit that subscribe button. As always, let's cash wildcard slate. Because while I was uploading the video, literally, I uploaded it and I was going to make it live. And then I saw that George Kittle's line bumped up to 4 here on his receptions prop. Now, where's receptions? It bumped up to 4, so obviously there was value at 3.5. So I posted this to my Patreon before it bumped. So if you guys are in the Patreon, hopefully you guys saw it and got that in. But at 4 reception, I still do like it. Obviously, it's been push or better in his last 5 games here. Definitely still like it. Definitely still like his fantasy score as well. I think that's a good pivot to his fantasy score because there's a high chance he gets a touchdown in this game. Already had 25.3 fantasy points against the Seahawks earlier this season. So those are 2 good pivots. Again, I still like his 4 receptions. Also, his receiving yards could be a strong play as well. But just because that line bumped, I'm still giving it as an official play at 3.5. Hopefully, maybe even some of you guys watching this video already got that play in regardless just before watching this video. But I'm just going to give some leans here just to provide some more value to you guys. First one is going to be, these are leans, but Travis Etienne over 37.5 rush yards in the first half. He's hit this in 3 of his last 5 games here, 108, 64, and 46 when he went over against these 3 defenses. But 37.5 rush yards in the first half here for Travis Etienne. I'm taking first half just because we don't know how this game script is really going to go. Out of all the games wildcard weekend, this is definitely the toughest game to really predict, and I definitely think this has the closest spread potential But Travis Etienne in the first half, I definitely think Jacksonville is going to definitely try to establish the run here against the Chargers. We take a look at Travis Etienne's game log this season. He's had 5 different games this season over 100 rushing yards, so we know he's a rushing potential. Quite a bit of games here with over 4 yards per carry, even a couple games, quite a bit of games over 5 yards per carry. But just an elite matchup, on the season. Chargers, most yards per carry, 5.59 yards per carry. In the NFL, 2 running backs, their second most rushing yards. Again, most yards per carry, second most rushing yards. I just think it's a great spot here for Travis Etienne. I definitely think they're going to try to establish a run early, like I said. And I'm taking first half. And again, this is a lean, by the way. But I'm taking first half a little more interesting to me just because JaMychal Hasty's been getting definitely some touches out that backfield. So, who knows what's going to happen in the second half or just later at the end of the moving down in that game. So Travis Etienne is a possible lean to take a look at, you guys. Also, going back to the full game, DK Metcalf's 4.5 receptions is one to look at as well. The juice on this, let's take a look at this, for the receptions for DK. 4.5 receptions. Yeah, a lot of some sports books have this at 5.5. DraftKings is -130 over 4.5. Caesars has this -130 at 4.5. 5.5 at a lot of other sports books. He's faced obviously the Niners twice this season now. And he had 7 catches on 9 targets against the Niners back on December 15th. Then in San Francisco, he had 6 targets for 4 catches. So hasn't put really a dud out. I mean, 4 catches and 7 catches against the Niners. Niners surprisingly do give up quite a bit of pass completions. One being obviously they have a good offense, so teams do are obviously playing from behind quite a bit. But I mean, wide receivers receptions. I mean, the Niners here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in the NFL on receptions to wide receivers this season, and then targets as well at a decent number as well, 22 overall, so 8th highest or 9th highest overall as far as the targets go to wide receivers. So I definitely think in a game where the Niners are heavy favorites at home, this could be a play to look at for DK at 4.5. I would not play this at 5, in my opinion. And then just another possible lean here as well is, again, I'm just giving you guys these to provide more value, so you guys take a look at these yourself. But Elijah Mitchell over 36.5 rush yards. You can see here he's hit the over on this 3 or 4 games with Christian McCaffrey in the lineup, and just with San Francisco being heavy point favorites in this game, I definitely think if they're up, they're gonna definitely try to pound the rock and waste that time off the clock with Elijah Mitchell as opposed to Christian McCaffrey, just depending on what the score is. But if he gets like 8 to 10 carries, he could hit the over on this pretty easily. So those are some 3 leans to take a look at, some plays just to provide more value for you guys. Again, let me know in the comments below. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button. As always, let's cash.